Good evening, welcome to Footy Classified. What an extraordinary weekend of football. There was casualties everywhere, some big name clubs in the gun tonight and a whole lot to get through, and some breaking news at the Demon surrounding a couple of high profile players. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. Football's First Lady, the multiple award winning Alf Brown winning, is back. Welcome back, Carrick. Good to have you back.
Good to have you back.
300 gamer and the 4-time best and fairest Kane Corns is here, and the 5-time, yes, the 5-time All-Australian in Matthew Lloyd is in the house. But we start with the Carlton Football Club. Unthinkably, they might miss they look destined to miss the finals, Caro, and on the back of yesterday, and this will increase pressure on the football department that has been through pressure before. We've already seen one departure in Andrew Russell, and now the scrutiny will grow on the back of the fitness issues.
Well, they've made the call that Michael Voss is their man. So, and that I believe is the right decision. But I still think that there will be moves made underneath Michael Voss. Maybe one will be made out of force because Ashley Hansen could end up coaching the West Coast. But I think also, Craig, the big question now is who is going to take over the high performance role and how are they going to fix their medical team. They made some changes. They did a big review earlier this year. Clearly more changes have to be made. And I think there are some big questions now on a number of players, Kane.
Yeah, look, I think we can look at that, and we can look at who is involved in the footy department. I think it's a little bit reactive to do that, though. I think it is, because it's the same group that we questioned when they were struggling in the early stages of last year.
There's no doubt the high performance in the medical team.
The high performance, absolutely. Well, it has to be, because Andrew Russell has left, so they need to replace him.
And that was the right decision.
And they will review that. I think he's excellent what he does, but I think the time has come for them to move on and go in a different direction. But to question the names that we put up on the screen, I'm not sure why we do that, because we did that last year and they turned it around. There's been key injuries. I think the Koning injury.
Have they turned it around?
Well, they did last year. They're 5 goals up in a prelim final, and
but they haven't turned it around this year.
Round 14. Are they wasting an era of?
Well, maybe that's out of their control. I think it's incredibly reactive to do that. You take out your ruckman, your key forward, your star is playing injured. You get the injuries that you've had this year. It disrupts all your continuity. I'm with you. Michael Voss is the guy. They need to back him in. Carlton fans need to relax, and I think it's unfair to question the footy staff.
I'm not questioning the footy staff.
Why did we put it up then?
Well, I didn't put it up. I'm just saying they're looking at everyone, and I think there will be some changes, and clearly Ashley Hansen could force that change. He's one of the favourites for the West Coast job.
The significant images of yesterday.
But I just have to take you to task. I don't want to be brutal about Andrew Russell, who did some brilliant stuff at Hawthorn, but you can't say the same of his job at Carlton. I'm not saying it's necessarily his fault, but you can't say he fixed their high performance.
5 goals up in a prelim final. It's a pretty good effort. It's a pretty good effort, and I mean,
that's Andrew Russell, is it?
Well, it's important. It's an important role. It's the second most important role behind the senior coach. Yes, absolutely, you review it like you do every year, like you should do at Richmond when they have that, and they've got a replacement. It's not a point arguing about it.
While we're talking about Andrew Russell, the head of fitness, Michael Voss was asked about him after the game, and then we'll hear from Josh Weddle, the Hawthorn star's reaction to the game plan yesterday.
Vossy, just on Andrew Russell, was that purely his decision or was it mutual?
No, we've been talking with Jack for probably about 7 or 8 weeks, and he sort of conveyed that at that point in time he was thinking about being able to do something else. So the latest conversation we had was merely confirming that next direction, and it's not about one person. It's about a collective. And we'll solve the problem together.
Yeah, we knew that their work rate's not the strongest in the fourth quarter, so we were may as well start it from the start to get them tired early. And then, when we heard that they were getting numbers down, we were like, let's just keep going, and really tired them out.
Pretty honest from a guy who plays very much in that manner. Just these were the images for me, Lordo, of yesterday. You saw a bench with really no one there. Michael Voss. Got really very little, if any, players left to activate in the game. And that's obviously the role you're there to do, is to communicate with the players. And then you've got a box upstairs with a lot of people scratching their heads. We heard in the commentary Jordan Lewis make reference to the mood on the bench and the manner in which the other players were supporting. Did you think they had a bad day in the coach's box and on the bench yesterday?
I think Hutchie, they were going to be beaten no matter what, because I thought Hawthorn were all over them from the start. And then the injury started and it just felt, it got belted by a bigger margin they would have. But Hawthorn would have beaten them anyway, because I think of the run and the carry that they had that Carlton don't have. So I'm with Kane. I think Andrew Russell's been fantastic, but it's time, and in that time that they'll go in a different direction. But I think it's more the mix of style of player that's an issue for them. So again,
they've committed to a lot of players long term.
So I look at it, they can't do much there. They've got Ollie Hollands, Elijah Hollands. It's just the type of mix of midfield that they've got, which is an issue for them. But this is the area for me. I don't think you can go in with those key defenders next year. I think Brodie Kemp has been thrown to the Wolves, isn't the player that he's been monstered a lot. So I think a second defender, look at Hawthorn. They're going after Barras and they're going after Battle. I hope Carlton, if they've got salary cap room.
They've got no money to
but
do
then
that. They've signed Lewis Young.
Who else? Oh, you can trade someone else.
No currency for those guys.
For any of them.
Where are they going to find any currency for the players playing their seconds?
Not seconds. I'm saying you trade out a player that plays every week.
5 or 6 players committed in their seconds already.
You trade out a midfielder to get in a key back.
The playing personnel is clearly the issue, but I won't have it be said that the soft tissue injuries have not been a curse for the club this year. Yeah. They did a massive review. They brought in 2 senior physios who had to come in and help out because it was such a debacle. I mean, you can't say the high performance has been good this year, and there were problems in the past too.
Kane, you bought every stock available on Hawthorn at the start of the year. You're a big believer in the strategy. You've called him the genius, and that's ageing very well. And it's the way they spread the ground that's been the impact.
Might have been a couple of years ago, I reckon, Hutchie. But look at this. Their high half forwards come up so high, and then their ball movement, which Lordo wants to talk about, their kicking ability off half back. And just look at the run and the dare that they play with. Now, since round 8, they're the second highest scoring side. They're number 1 for defence. And this is in part because this is infectious. This gives you energy. Scoring gives you energy, and then you all get involved and they all join in. And the thing I love about him is how even it is. And this goes back to February in 2023 on the rebuild, which was questioned. This is Sam Mitchell. I think if there are a whole group of clubs doing the same thing, it's possibly less likely to work. So if you think about the clubs that have rebuilt well, they were the only clubs doing it at the time. What that does is it gives you a point of difference, and when you're building a list and building a strategy, if you're trying to do what everyone else is doing, the resources are finite. So I'm really confident. So that how well has that aged?
February 23.
And that was bold.
And so I love the thinking of that.
You did.
And I suspect it's going to become infectious. We love trends in footy, and it's going to put pressure, I think, on boards who are going to question their recruiting strategies harder than ever before. If you're a mid-tier club spinning and topping up and trading, it takes a very brave board and it takes a coach that drives it. And what I love about this is he's driven it himself. He's been clear how many picks he wants. He's influenced who those selections
He's running that football club in a football sense, isn't he?
He's pitching players himself.
Weren't we critical of Alistair Clarkson when he used to do that? Like, we were critical that he was involved too much?
He made some poor decisions. And Alistair had Graham Wright and he had Chris Fagan for a long time. I don't feel that there's a really strong person pulling the strings in the way Graham Wright did and the way Chris Fagan did. It's different now.
You've got to be right, though.
Yeah, I'm saying, but aren't we very reactive again in that because they're playing well, we go, oh, how great is this that he's involved in everything? If it doesn't go well, we say, gee, the coach, he's involved in everything.
We all questioned, a lot of us questioned it at the start of last year. I arrowed myself mid-season and said I was wrong. He's done exactly the right thing. But I think Craig's right because soon we're going to have a 19th club. So not only do they need to do it, Craig, they need to do it soon. Clubs like St Kilda.
I think he's got less blind spots than Alistair in recruiting.
I like it because you live and die. You're the one that's coaching.
Yep. So you are always anyway, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, so he's taking goal kicking into his own hands. He's taking recruiting, game style, and all of that.
And Weddle's comments, that's straight out of the Sam Mitchell hymn book. I mean, he's creating players in his own image.
Let's talk Melbourne and some significant names being circled in the last 72 hours. Tom Morris on 9 News tonight reported that Christian Petrarca is unhappy. Tom said that if he was out of contract, and bear in mind he has 5 years to go, that he would be seeking a trade at the moment at the direction of the club. It's a significant name and a significant suggestion, a club that's feeling the pinch. It comes on the back of reports late last week, I think on 7 from memory, from Mitch Cleary, that Jack Viney, whose dad is at North Melbourne were targeting. He only has 1 year to go. He'd assumed there's some degree of knowledge around a potential Jack Viney approach from North, and they are outside Gawn, their 2 most culturally significant players. Caro, they've slipped to 13th on the ladder. They're in the premiership window here. Are we seeing a club in the early signs of a meltdown?
Well, they're 2 very disturbing stories for a start. Now, clearly Christian Petrarca is going nowhere, and I'd be amazed if Viney left, although maybe if North offered him a long-term deal and Melbourne won't. But he's such a leader at that club, he can't. What was interesting to me, what pricked my ears up about Tom's comments were the professional standards. And he was more talking about his teammates. And it can't just be Clayton Oliver and what Clayton went through at the end of last year. Is he talking about, is he questioning the leadership, the on-field leadership at the club? Is he questioning some of the footy department's decisions as well? I mean, to have a star player like that feeling so disgruntled.
How poorly are the comments around the best culture they've seen in years? How poorly are they dating now? And we questioned them at the time. The Gary Pert comments on SEN. We questioned them at the time. They were ridiculous at the time. They're even more ridiculous with Christian Petrarca, their most professional player, potentially being disgruntled. I want to take you back to last week in round 21, off the back of that Petrarca season-ending injury, which, Carol, at the time you reported. I don't think the Petrarca camp were that happy with the management of this. So this is Stephen May at 8:02 p.m. That's the collision there. Now, the club did say after the Petrarca incident that they would review their processes. He stays out on the ground for 12 minutes after that, and then it is reported that he's had the broken ribs. You've seen him taken off in an ambulance to hospital. Just not sure 12 minutes on the ground after breaking your ribs.
Wasn't really clean cut to diagnose that one though, was it?
Well, I think you run out to him. I think the report was that there was painkillers run out to him at the time. 12 minutes, you got broken ribs, Hutchie. That is a long time, let me tell you.
Particularly after Petrarca.
Off the back of Petrarca as well. So they're in a world of pain, Melbourne, and a lot of it also revolves around the game style, Lordo, and the way that they are instructing the team to play.
Yeah, it's not a great style of football at all. The way they're playing, they've become a really boring side. No one's going to watch them play at all.
Because Simon has been so successful in being dour, hard-nosed and structured, do you think that can wear on players if you don't adapt your method to a modern era?
Yeah,
is there an element of that, do you think?
I don't see. It's all that
Does he let them play?
Contest and pressure he talks about a lot, but I don't think they play enough. You see Cozzy, Pickett and Petrarca, it's moments of brilliance, but aside from that, there's not too much else that I like about the way they play.
You've got to evolve, Lordo, and the longest-serving coaches have evolved. Chris Scott has evolved. John Longmire has evolved. Simon Goodwin's got to evolve. This style of play is not going to win you a premiership. They took more chances in 2021. Here's the scoring breakdown of where they sat. Third in 2021, and then it's slowly declined since then. Sixth, then seventh. Didn't win you a final.
Is that personnel
They're now 14th.
or is it risk?
Well, it's similar personnel. Well, I mean, I hear in Melbourne's injury list, yeah, Petrarca's a great player. He's out and May's out. Who else? Everyone's got two good players out. So that is down to a coach that is obsessed with contest and defence, and the way that they played on Saturday night was embarrassing. Yeah,
so do they do what Richmond did under Damien Hardwick at the end of 2016 and change the assistants?
They need like a Don Pike to come in like you did at Sydney and revitalise their ball movement, allow the players to play with some freedom, score more heavily, get the fans back to the football. And there's the coaching staff that we often bring up, or the footy staff. But Simon Goodwin needs to evolve if he wants to remain in the top job for a long time, like the best coaches have.
And that's what often happens, Cara. I think that if you support your senior coach, Andrew McQualter's only new to the Demons, but they often will surround him with people who can come in and bring in fresh ideas.
Funny old stoush between Sydney and Collingwood that erupted on the back of Craig McRae's comments after the game on the weekend. John Longmire hit back on those today. We have a listen to those first, Cara, before we get your thoughts on just what's going on at Collingwood.
I reckon if it was at the MCG, it would have been paid. Yeah, there's definitely an advantage with a home crowd. There's a lot of deliberates tonight too. That was a bit of a circus, so I'm sure they'll come out and justify that too. But umpires don't always get it right. That's fair.
It was an extraordinary admission from a coach of a team that has the biggest home ground advantage in the AFL, and they play finals and obviously the grand final in front of on their home deck. I wonder what Chris Fagan thought of those comments. That was my initial thought.
And the Chris Fagan reference was in part due to the free kicks in the grand final, Caro, which went the way of the Magpies in so many line ball decisions.
That's right. It was the biggest own goal that I've seen from Craig McRae since he failed to mention the team that beat them St Kilda earlier in this year. I mean, it was music to the ears of every non-Victorian coach who has to play grand finals against a Victorian team at the MCG. It was a strange and poor press conference, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So there's an intriguing situation going on at Collingwood at the moment. Bizarrely, Graham Wright is still no certainty to come back as footy boss.
You don't think he will, do you?
Well, I don't think he will, but we're in mid-August now. He's due back at the end of August. He's still in Italy and conversations are still going on between Graham Wright and the board. I don't believe he will stay. We talked at the very start of this season about some fractious relationships in the footy department involving the coach Craig McRae and the two blokes sharing Graham Wright's job in Justin Lepich and Brendan Bolton. My prediction is that Brendan Bolton will not stay on as footy boss, and that the club might look outside, look elsewhere. And I'm even here. The big in vogue names at the moment are Chris Davies and Danny Daly, Brisbane and Port Adelaide. Chris Davies at Port Adelaide. But then you've got Justin Leppich, he'll take over the list management. But the fact that this situation has gone on all year, the fact that they've obviously got this off-field incident going on, issue with Craig Kelly, and what I understand is going on is that Jeff Brown has very much stepped in and is taking over all these decisions. And if there is a new footy boss, it'll be Jeff Brown's call. If Graham Wright leaves, it will be Jeff Brown and Graham Wright's call. I'm not saying Craig Kelly has been frozen out, but I think Jeff Brown has looked around and looked at some of the things that have happened in recent months, including press conferences like that, and said, I need to step in here.
He's been flawless, Craig McRae, publicly until now. That if you do concede that was an error, then
he's been brilliant.
He's entitled to one.
He came to that footy club and resurrected them.
He's entitled to one.
Harry, you're talking about Jeff Brown, but has Jeff Brown acted too late? Should he have acted 12 months ago when Graham Wright walked into his office and said, you know what, I want a break?
I don't think they did the right thing. I think you're right.
I think it's nearly cost him.
And he left behind Claire Pettifer, who Graham Wright had brought into the footy department. Within months, Claire's gone and she's not happy. I think that there were some poor decisions made, and they should have seen this, including Craig Kelly. They should have seen this disharmony earlier.
It's really interesting watching the two coaches go about their business in the last quarter. Before we see that vision, let's have a listen to Craig McRae again after the match.
We've openly talked about what winning looks like and behaviours like that, and then losing behaviours, and I think blame's a real losing behaviour, so I'm wrestling with that at the moment, you know. Wrestling with trying to blame others or blame umpires or blame whatever, you know, being in a position to win the game and then having to hold on. I'm just reflecting myself now without the vision in front of me, but you're thinking maybe the method's not the right one.
You can probably start with blaming yourself and the unaccountability of the midfield. So this is once again the conundrum of coaching from the box or the interchange bench. Look at this vision. John Longmire consulting his coaches. There's the discussion, there's the screens in front, and there's Craig McRae coughing up a 5-goal lead in the last quarter as if he's a spectator. So I'd love to see a different style of Craig McRae. What's your coaching tactics? Get up to the box, coach a different way, make some moves. Longmire, it's McDonald forward, it's Parker on ball, it's Warner swapping with Heaney and dominating. They're the moves that have been made, where once again Collingwood cough up in a tight game and that aura about winning is gone.
But Kane, what do you say to the fact that he won a premiership?
100%, but you've got to evolve, don't you, Lordo? Like, just because that worked for you once, like John's coach from the bench, he's now evolving. Other coaches have gone, Fagan's tried bench, he's tried... I just think you're sitting there looking like a spectator, you're conceding goals, Heaney and Warner are having 14 each in the last quarter, and you're not doing anything. I don't know. I think it's. I think it's.
But he put Steele side bottom on Errol Goulden, and up until 3/4 time, that was a brilliant. There's another mistake another thing that happens after you win flags. You make some poor decisions in list management too, because sometimes you misjudge your list. So
you don't have the picks.
Ginnivan went for next to nothing, and that's not looking very smart at the moment. And they traded away a really good draft pick for Schultz.
I think it's too early on that one. I still think Schultz can be a good player for Collingwood.
He's not going to age. He's pick 6 though.
You judge it over three.
Pretty high draft.
Now, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it is, but I think Ginnivan, it's early. It's early, and Schultz, I think you know what he'll give you. I think he'll play 200 games for Collingwood.
It sounds like people are going to carry the can for that decision.
Chapel. Who was it? Chapel, Lilly and Marsh about it.
Just on it.
How do you manage the...
And that's the interesting thing, Hutchie, in that you don't want them all going at the same time, and pretty much all of them are backing up next year. So that's what I think at the end of 2025, are they in a position where everyone's nearly going at the same time? That's where they might have to make some hard calls in the next month or so.
Plenty more to come on Footy Classified as we head into the break. Essendon on our radar as the Suns deliver a knockout blow. Where to for the Bombers? Was it the same old Bulldogs or their excuses as Bevo's men have another late season shocker on the road? And Texas' future up in the air, the Crows mixed messages, and Kane's role in the room. That's all ahead on Footy Class.
Yeah, for all of our supporters and our club, it's just extremely frustrating, and you can come up with all sorts of words to describe it, but you're obviously disappointed, but that doesn't help anything. Hey, we'll have a concerted effort in the off-season, don't worry about 17 other clubs will as well.
A frustrated coach, Brad Scott, Caro, and we'll get Matthew's thoughts obviously as well. It's been a big demise for us in the last month, and there's enormous frustration among the supporter group.
Yeah, and I think if there's frustration from Brad Scott and clearly enormous disappointment, and he's been looking increasingly disappointed in recent weeks with some losses that could have gone either way, and just, the club could be second if 2 or 3 of them had been wins. I think there's frustration around that, not so much the supporter group, but just the high-profile supporter groups, the influencers at the club.
Again.
And
Every year we talk about this,
but
don't we?
I think there was frustration mid-year that don't get too excited because we're not that good. And now it's like, well, don't think it's all doom and gloom, because maybe have we been a lot worse in the second half of the season than the first half of the season?
They've lost 4 games to teams 12 and under, which you brought attention to tonight on.
Yeah, but they haven't
radio.
been... Look, they should have won on the weekend. They threw that game away in the last quarter. But Gold Coast were pretty good up until 3/4 time. I think there's real frustration. I still think there are cultural problems at Essendon, Matthew. What's your view?
Yeah, well, they were up again. They kept 1 goal 9. They had Gold Coast on toast. They had the Adelaide Crows on toast 3 or 4 weeks ago as well. So,
where does the blame sit? Like, recruiting's been well analysed and it hasn't been good enough. But what's the heart of what's going on?
I still think they lack killer instinct, which
Where's the
great
edge?
teams have. Where's the edge? Well, I even say after Zach Merritt came, who would just say, I want to... Durham's improved, but he's still making his way in the game. So I think they lack a strong core senior playing group that take you places and take you deep, and they get you winning game after game after game and consistency. And then the kids... I just touched on some of them. I don't think they're tough enough.
No, and Brad's got to. So Brad's role in that is he's got to start to weed those out. And there's some that he should be prepared to give up on, and certainly some that you're questioning.
Nick Cox been a whipping boy over the weekend, or is that fair?
No, that's been fair because he's. And I can see why he was a top 10 pick, because he burst on the scene. He's 200 centimetres. He's athletic, kicks both feet. And you go, wow, this guy can be anything. And I got sucked in. This guy can be anything. But honestly, I'm ready to give up. You can't not. You can't go off with a concussion for an incident like this. And I know...
Well, hang on, it's not his... concussions aren't his decision.
Hutchie, where's the concussion? Where's the concussion? So let's have a look at this.
Well, doctors choose concussions, not players.
Let's have a look at this incident again. If you can't cope and cop a hit like this, which is going to happen to you once again...
Players don't decide their own concussions.
So maybe your makeup isn't... Your makeup isn't to play AFL football, Hutchie. Where is the head knock there? Where is it?
Well, you don't know what happened on the post-camera on the way down there.
I do, because I've watched it 20 times. I'm just saying, I understand the sensitivities around head knocks, but if you're an AFL footballer...
You can't say to the doctor, hey, I'm not... I can't argue
But what I can say is, if you cannot absorb a hit like that, and if that hit and that force results in a concussion, that's going to happen to you once again.
I mean, head knocks are different.
Well, they may be, but I'm just calling as I see it. That is going to happen repeatedly. And if you're going to not be able to cop that hit... regardless of whether it's a concussion, you're more prone to concussion than others, and that may be the case. But that's going to happen to him repeatedly, and maybe your body's not made for it to play the game if you have to go off as a result of a hit like that.
You said some of the kids weren't tough enough. Which ones?
Oh, I think that man, Nick Cox, I don't think he fights hard enough or scraps hard enough. I think Jones, he's playing him as a tall winger. I still think he needs to fight and scrap harder. Archie Perkins is another one that I just don't think... fights for his life enough. Sardis is another one that plays in the second. So again, that's just not on them. That's on Brad Scott, and that's on the senior players, and that's on the club.
Yeah, and it's on the likes of Redmond and Mackay
exactly.
and players like that as well.
Either.
They're not aggressive enough at the moment either.
They're playing poor as well. Yeah.
The Bulldogs, they were the talk of the town going into the game, and they came up short in a significant way. That's twice on the road this year in particular. And the goal kicking has been a real issue for them. The last 6 weeks, Lordo, they've been about low 30%, I think, 33 or 34%.
Yeah, and that's why they got Brad Johnson in to try and help. But I think their 3 main players who take shots are technically flawed. So they don't have the fluency. I think Darcy Fogarty's the best kick in the game. But if you look at the Western Bulldogs' key players, I think they lack fluency in what they're doing. So Aaron Norton lacks it. Darcy's got to have a massive, massive off-season trying to, when you're that big, improving his technical side of how he runs in and gets to the line and tries to kick through the footy. And Jamara, he's had issues.
You've been speaking about this for 3 years with him, Lord.
Yeah, since he's been a schoolboy, he's been the best player and the #1 pick, but is technically an issue. So that's a problem for their big 3 forwards.
I can't tell you what Tim English is going to do at the end of the year or what Bulldogs are going to do, but it's very rare to hear the coach speak about one of his players like this.
Yeah, too much the other way. Yeah, hit outs to advantage, and that was unstable. So it's a huge responsibility in there, isn't it? Tim's had a really good sort of last month and a half, and credit to their ruck, this afternoon he was pretty good. I think it was influential in quite a number of things in the game.
It's one of the biggest baths I've seen this year.
It's as strong as I've heard Luke Beveridge about a player for a long time.
Yeah, and Adelaide want to trade Riley O'Brien, and they dropped him for a 28-year-old backup in strong stages.
He'll get approaches.
Yeah, and he should go. Riley O'Brien, he should sign for 5 years if Adelaide don't want him. But has any player's value dropped more from the start of the season to now than Tim English?
Well, I don't think West Coast think it's dropped.
Well, you think West Coast would be foolish to pay anything above 500,000.
500,000 is minimum chips.
Well, we're seeing Lloyd Meek play on minimum chips, and he's a better player than Tim English. So that's the model for a decent ruckman.
Do you agree with that?
Go and get Soldo, Sweet. Go and get Meek. Go and get Reeves, Pitnet. There's a million of
Cameron.
them. Yeah, Darcy Cameron. There's a million of them, and we saw on the weekend Lockie Keefe is beating McInerney, and he's played one game for the year. So the ruckman and their value is dropping significantly.
He's got to get stronger, Hutchie. So, he's been in the system for too long to be monstered like he does. He's a good player, great mobile ruckman, but he still gets beaten up by the big rucks like O'Brien too often.
And there's a big challenge in Adelaide, which is called Texit, right? How to exit Tex and when. And is it this year or next? Matthew Nix was giving off a little bit of mixed messages on the weekend.
Tex and I are very much aligned around, where to from here and how we work through it. And it's not a decision that's necessarily been locked away yet. I would love Tex to play on, and he and I are just talking through that now as far as what does that look like.
Yeah, went on to be a bit half-hearted after that. He played a good game yesterday, to be fair, and it was the first time we've seen him back in this sort of form for a while. But the challenge they've got is this guy is emerging. He's kicked 5. He looked the real deal. I know he's promised a lot for a long time, Kane. And
there's a thrill seeker as well.
The thrill seekers are erupting. And then Curtin bobbed up with 2. We don't know whether he's going to be a forward or a mid or a back, but it was a half a breakout-ish game yesterday. And you've got those 3. Is it the right thing for him to play?
I get the feeling, as much as Matthew Nix talks around in circles, he's afraid to make a hard decision on a club legend who is so influential
and who is desperate to play on.
And loved by the fans.
And who won't play in the showdown, by the way, will he? He's having surgery.
And so we get another look at what life without Taylor Walker looks like for Adelaide, and it looks a lot better than life with him. So he's got to make a hard call, Matthew Nix, and it appears to me that he's afraid to make that hard call.
Well, if they didn't have Phil Thorpe and Fogarty and maybe Curtin going so well, I'd say give him another year. But when you just don't want to play Tex over Curtin. Say if they see Curtin as a third forward, you don't want to give those games away to Tex.
Lukosius is going to move, right? Like if you're dropped on the weekend and you're Lukosius and you see Mac Andrew come in and play forward.
What a forward line, Hutchie. You got the Phil Seeker, you got Fogarty, you got Lukosius who kicked 39 goals last year, you got Rankin, you got Rochelle. It is brilliant.
Yeah, and Porter's going to be into Lukosius as well. It's going to force your hand.
It's as good a front 6 as you're going to get in the game. But
so you think it's time for Tex?
Well, I said this 6 weeks ago, but I don't reckon Matthew Nix is prepared to make a hard call.
After the break, Caro's arrow finally returns. We can't wait, which means it's on for young and old. Tiger time as Richmond narrow the field in their CEO search. And an elephant in the room for a team with a top 4 finish ahead. All that ahead on Footy Classified.
The St Kilda Football Club had a very good day against Richmond on Sunday, but last Friday, to be brutal, was a communications debacle. It all revolved around the club's decision to have a look at the recruiting potential of the AFL's most out-of-favour player, Taron Thomas. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, look, I'm really here to talk about the weekend's game. The club, to be fair, is releasing a statement. I'm a servant of the club, and that's the exact instruction that I've been asked to execute on and that I'll adhere to.
Following a course of due diligence, I can confirm that St Kilda will not be pursuing Taron Thomas.
So first came Ross Lyon's awkward press conference, and then came CEO Carl Delina's public statement that the club was washing its hands of Thomas, the troubled recidivist. That was in the wrong order. And to my mind, the club's recruiting guru, Graham Allen, was hung out to dry. Sure, it was dumb to have lunch with Thomas and his mentor, Robbie Armatt, in a Lygon Street pasta joint, but every off-field leader at the club, from the president, the CEO, the footy boss and the coach, knew and approved the Thomas tyre kick. And, to my mind, so was Ross Lyon. Why put him out in public before the club statement? He was made to look foolish and the club in panic mode. Both Ross Lyon and Graham Allen are big boys. They're seasoned campaigners, but they have every right to be disappointed in a club that frankly failed to show leadership and instead went to water. So one on-field leader the club failed to notify about the move was Hannah Priest, the club's AFLW captain. And my understanding is that Hannah and several of her teammates were very upset about this decision and made their thoughts quite clear to the club. So quite apart from some supporters and members who got involved and sponsors, it was the women of the club too who were very unhappy about it. But I just can't understand why you would point it all on Graham Allen and then put the coach out when you've made the decision and you're still getting in touch with people to tell them about it.
They panicked to the reaction, didn't they?
Completely.
And they hadn't done the courteous thing, which was get everyone involved in at least the conversation.
Everyone, the board and the CEO knew.
So it's not unreasonable to go and meet with Taron Thomas to understand where he is in any attempt to rehabilitate himself in the years ahead. It might be 2 years before he is ready to play AFL, if ever again.
Do you think Ross Lyon should have said, we met with him, we're not saying we're going to draft him, and that's what we did, and that would have helped?
I think Ross felt, I don't know what Ross thought, but you felt from watching that press conference that it's not his call to make, it's the club's call to make, and they should have made the call before he did the press conference. The other thing I want to say is it's going to be difficult for the AFL to make a call on this because I don't think Taron Thomas is looking at jail time. That's not my understanding. So say he's allowed to play VFL next year, Matthew, and because St Kilda had heard that he was rehabilitating himself, apparently he's found religion and they thought he was doing better. I'm not sure what they think now.
It's going to be a long road for him. But
I think Mason Wood's angry. I don't think he made the comments that he's been reported to have made.
Can you ever see a time that he plays another game of AFL football?
Yeah, I think down the track...
How many years do you think?
It might be... Look, he's got a long road ahead of him to even remotely get any clemency or forgiveness for his sins. But we are a redeeming society, and that it's a long road ahead for that. And you don't just wake up one day and go, I wonder how he's feeling today and we'll recruit him. The recruiting of a player can take 3-4 years. So I think they were entitled to have the meeting to check for themselves. It doesn't mean anything. And they just had to own it when they did. So, we met with him. We'd be more about it if we didn't. But he's not on our radar.
On-field, Hutchie. Damning comments for the Richmond Football Club, Caro, with Ross Lyon, with the way he described this game against the Tigers.
They take the win and move on, really, I would think. Play a really good team. Next week in Geelong, they're a young, developing team. Bit of a unique game, I would think. I don't know what it looked like. It was like a bit of circle work, I think. So, look, Geelong won't let us play circle work next week, I wouldn't have thought.
144 marks the Saints took and
lowest tackles ever.
And you look at some of you look at the Richmond midfield and line it up against the St Kilda midfield. It's not exactly... They're not exactly underdogs at Richmond midfield.
Particularly when you've invested so heavily
they've been an appalling season.
In that midfield, Caro.
Very quickly, who will be Richmond's boss?
Look, I think the decision will be made in the coming week or maybe weeks. It's down to 2. I think there was about 5 or 6 interviewed, and I still think that Simon Matthews, the internal candidate, is the favourite, Craig.
It's time for the
That's my belief.
Elephant in the room.
Hutchie, the elephant in the room tonight is Tom Hawkins, superstar player, 359 games, 796 goals. He's a Hall of Famer, straight in when he's eligible. But the elephant in the room is if he gets through training over the next month and he becomes available for selection, what Chris Scott does, because I don't think he can play him. His form was off for nearly 2 months and then he goes down and the side has performed really, really well since he's gone out. I think Shannon Neal deserves his spot ahead of him, a match-fit Shannon Neal. And I also think Jeremy Cameron was playing up on a wing and high half forward. He's better out of the goal square. So I just don't see how they can bring back Tom Hawkins, and what a tough decision that will be, and a hard decision for him to look him in the eye and say, I'm sorry, Tom, but we cannot play you.
It sounds like they're going to give him a look at him against the West Coast in what they hope will be a live kill in round 24, or around the last round. Do you think that will affect the decision to make it harder if he plays, or do you need to have a look at him?
I just think, in my personal opinion, if I was Chris Scott, I'd be hoping he doesn't get up to play one game. Obviously, do you give him a farewell? Does that mess up with your
I don't know if
system?
you need to. I mean, he's had a lot of milestone games. He's been celebrated. He's broken the record and all of that. So I think you just have the conversation with him now. You say, look, Tom, if you're fit, you're probably not in our best side right now. This is the mix that we've gone for. This is the mix that we're working with. Not to say that if we get an injury, it's not going to be great to have you as a backup. So get yourself as fit as you possibly can. Happened to Nathan Jones. Not that he's the calibre of Tom Hawkins in that premiership year at Melbourne. It's happened to great players before that just unfortunately the timing doesn't add up. But right now, I don't think Tom would be surprised if he's left out of that side.
Close checking is up next. Good call, bad call, and a whole lot more ahead on Footy Classified.
I'd like to think I'm going to win every week, but probably I'm not being realistic in this competition. It's so hard to stay up, and maybe this is just the little check that we needed to get us to bounce back up again for the final 2 weeks.
Now, we're really confident in our game, but again, we're not perfect. So we continue to work on. We've always got something to work on. We're far from the finished products.
Two sides in the premiership mix, both the Brisbane Lions and the GWS Giants, but I really like the Giants. I think they've got a hunger about them. They've got all the ingredients to win a premiership, and I saw Toby Green after the prelim. They weren't satisfied that they lost by a point. They genuinely believed that they blew a chance, an opportunity to win a premiership, and both Kane and I were in situations where you had to knock on the door for a while, and I think it builds you up and steels you for that next chance that you get in playing in the big finals. And I think they're building, and to me, after 6 wins in a row, they're almost my premiership favourites.
So, Matthew, a few weeks ago I said there were 3 strong home-ish contenders for the West Coast coaching job. 2 of them now, in Jamie Graham and Dean Cox, have ruled themselves out of the job. Nathan Buckley says he's not going to go for the job. I mean, a lot of this is maybe for personal reasons. So the only one still alive of the ones I talked about is Ash Hansen, currently an assistant at Carlton and who was at West Coast. I'm amazed. I'm amazed that more high-profile people are not going for this one job. They are the only club at the moment looking for a coach, so they're in the box seat, Craig. But I don't think they'll go for Schofield. Yeah. I don't think the caretaker is a good move in this case. But are they worried about a club with a new CEO and a changing president at the end of the year?
They're a plum job. Absolute plum job. Big crowds, best funded club in the competition, no expectations, members are going to come anyway. And don't discount the fact that if you want a job in modern times, the smartest thing you can do is rule yourself out. So I'm not buying all of the no's. Close checking time with Kane Corns.
Thanks, Hutchie. This is what you see with Chad Warner. You see the brilliance, you see the 30 goals from the midfield, and you see him do it again and will his team over the line. So here's the first of his goals in the second. Good goal. How did he do that? This is an easy goal. Well, he did it because no one went anywhere near him, and he did it as you see him pop up in the screen here. Where is the accountability against Chad Warner, the most explosive and dangerous midfielder in the game right now? So then you fast forward to the last quarter. He kicks another snap goal. We go, oh, Chad Warner, how brilliant is that? That's a great goal. Well, how did he do it? I'll tell you how he did it. He started a stoppage against Chris, very experienced premiership player at Collingwood. Who wants this? This is what I speak about, the lack of accountability from the Collingwood midfield. He's not going. He's not really digging in. And then Warner gets goal side and he goes, uh-oh, I'm in a bit of trouble here. And he finally realises it there and then bang, the lack of accountability from that Collingwood midfield is the only reason they lost that game. Wagner, you could have bumped him. You could have tackled him. You elected to bump him. And the ramifications of that one split decision when you are a fringe player is significant. So Holmes then bounce, 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 and you set up an easy shot for goal for your teammate. So you've got the chance to tackle him. Tackle him. Don't bump right there. Are you going to tackle? Oh, I'm going to bump. Well, next minute, 4 bounces and a shot at goal. Split decision, poor decision. Speaking of poor decisions, who do you want to kick the ball in? Nick Murray is the last Adelaide player I would choose to kick in, yet he's taking kick-ins. I'm on a campaign to stop that. Give the ball from kick-ins to your best kicks, not your worst. Speaking of great kick, that's the kick of the year, new candidate for kick of the year, the second time he's been mentioned in that category. Who thinks to do that when the game is on the line? That is just unbelievable and a great touch from Zach Butters. And then this is Hawthorn. This is everything you need to know about Hawthorn. This is absolutely brilliant. It's electric. It's unstoppable. It's infectious. It's the reason they're the most watchable team in football. It's the reason the players are having so much fun. It's the reason they can win the premiership this year. Get out the back. All started from a defensive movement where they all joined in. And look at that, the unselfishness, the youngsters get involved, and come on the Hawks.
Good call, bad call is up next on Footy Classified. Good Good call, bad call time. And Caro, controversially, after a long time out from the game, is back with a new ball. Caro, Foxtel's potential sale would make the AFL nervous and the NRL even more so. Good call, bad call.
Well, despite the fact you're a smart Alec, you've just made a very good but quite disturbing call, Craig. We know that we've heard that News Corp has put Foxtel potentially on the market. The AFL are about to start a 7-year deal with this media broadcaster, and they might be dealing with different people. Even more worryingly for the NRL, they're out of contract and they are going to market. Not a great time for the NRL.
All right,
cool.
For you, Hutchie, sometime you have to break your own rules before you answer that. Let's have a listen to the legend Dwayne Russell on Dwayne's World on SEN.
I know you've been holding about 30 or so I apologise to you, Brad, but welcome to you. Thanks for holding.
Turn it up, Dwayne. An hour and 25 minutes I've given from Melbourne Park to Clifton Springs.
You have held for a while. How long have you actually held for, Brad? Just to be honest, how long have you held for?
An hour and 26 minutes and 10 seconds.
My goodness, I've made you hold that long. All right, Brad, the next minute and a half is yours.
Well, it's a bad call. All he says is, you call, you get on. He got on. It was a little bit later than he would have liked, but he got on.
He's a busy,
bad call.
popular show.
Yeah.
Kane, AFL players should be mic'd up for all games. Good call, bad call.
I'd usually say bad call, Lordo, but on this occasion it's a good call. Let's have a listen to Willem Drew.
A little bit of contact, your free kick. No, straight into his back. No, here. It's here. It's here. It's in dead ball. That is. You can't go like that. Be very careful. Yeah, no, that's all right. Your free kick.
Player, you know that's shit out.
Thank you. Time back on stand.
Telling Clayton Oliver what he thought of that. Flopping for a free kick.
Nathan Buckley exposed one of footy's biggest scams this morning. Good call, bad call.
Good call by you, Caro. He does a segment with Kane on Monday mornings called Questions Without Notice, but here's the scam when Buck says this morning.
This is a real question without notice because I haven't prefaced this with you off air.
Is that what happens with you? Questions without notice.
That was just a slip of the tongue.
It's good to hear you've all been listening to our high-rating network, SEN, all day. Kane.
What a joke.
Channel 9, Kane, has edged ahead of Fox in the retired Stars comeback game. Good call, bad call.
Your best call yet. Hutchie, Lordo and myself are feeling much better about ourselves after we saw this. He got his own banner, but he lasted 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes with that hammock. He just wasn't prepared. He hadn't done the work. It cost his
Get
team.
yourself ready, Joey.
Come on. Embarrassing.
Caro, there's a time and place for everything. Good call, bad call.
This is a very good call. I couldn't believe it when I saw this last Friday night. Have a look at and Channel 9's coverage has been brilliant of the Olympics, but have a look at this question to Olympic cyclist Matthew Richardson.
As an Olympic silver medalist now, do you think you can be the most famous Matthew Richardson in Australian sport?
Maybe if I got the gold. But I'd say I'm getting closer, day by day maybe. But yeah, maybe one day.
Is that the craziest question I've ever heard in Paris to a bloke who's just won a silver medal? Was he referring perhaps to the Port CEO, Matthew Richardson?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Lordo, there's no
That was the best fake laugh I've heard in a while.
It wasn't fakey.
No such thing as celebrating good call, bad call.
Bad call by you, Kano, because he didn't play after this, Charlie Cameron. I just wonder what effect that had on the game. 14 points up, jumps up, rolls his ankle, and just hope it doesn't hinder his run into the finals because that was a big moment.
Can't go giving out high fives willy-nilly. Yep.
Craig Hutchison, no team, not one team would deserve this year's wild card round opportunity offer. Good call, bad call.
Bad call. Hallelujah. You've seen the light call. You're joining the wildcat movement. Caro, I love it. You're with me. 7v10 and 8v9 is imminent. This has been something our program collectively has pushed for a long time. We love it. And it would be, imagine the drama this year of the close games. 7v10 and 8v9.
Integrity.
It'd be sensational. That's a boulder dash call from you, Caro. What else? The closing cook is up next on Footy Class.
Kano, I have a massive respect for you. I look out for you, and there's no one who loves you more than me.
Here's a but.
But I got really worried when you said this morning on SEN.
State of Origin is back. It's the Vicks taking on the All-Stars. Campbell Brown is captain for the Vicks, and I will be captaining the All-Stars. But I will be dusting off the footy boots.
I never wanted to. I'm nervous for him, Caro, because I just don't like Kane doing sport. I love him as a host. He's probably the best in the business. He is the best in the business, but I don't want to see this again, actually. At least it's AFL 9s where it's no contact, which might suit our man Kane because he didn't want contact.
It's just an excuse to use his vision again.
And also this vision. So I just don't like seeing Kane do sport anymore. So I got really nervous, Kane. Why are you doing it to yourself?
Well, the things you do for the company, Lordo. Company man, of course. Company man.
It's a non-contact
Just
40
do it,
game.
just do as I'm told.
For on the menu, which would be wonderful. There you go. Kane's having a big year in the world of sport. Don't forget, Wednesday night is back this week on Footy Classified with Eddie and Lordo and the team. We'll see you next Monday night right here on Channel 9. Good night.